I hope our religious leaders would forgive me if I say that in the beginning there was darkness, and the Lord said there be light, and there was light. So we have light now. We shall proceed. Council, please continue.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chongan, may I remind you that you're still under oath?
Yes, Council.
Before we left for that short break, you talked about having met Mr. Baba Job, who advised you to reconcile with Jame. And you were telling us what eventually happened to Mr. Baba Job. Could you say that again, please?
Well, Mr. Baba Job would eventually fall out with Jammeh, and he would be tried and sentenced to prison. And I think he died just before he was supposed to be released.
Mr. Chongan, I asked you a question which you haven't really answered fully. You said prison conditions were horrible. You eventually would be released after 30 months of detention. Now you are back to your family, enjoying the basic necessities of life, which in Mile 2 prison would sound very much like utter luxury. How did it feel?
Well, I wouldn't say enjoying luxury, because when I came out, I am here, I am jobless. When I'm out of prison, obviously, but I am jobless. I don't have a work. All my life, I work in my life. Now, I don't even have money to buy a packet of cigarettes. But also, I'm grateful because at least I've reunited with my family, and my little daughter is starting to recognize me, to accept that I'm her dad. And my court case also continued to drag, as I indicated earlier on. And
did you develop any condition as a result of your incarceration?
Yes, I developed, I had a very serious back pain. Waist pain. If you ask anybody who comes from Mile 2 after a prolonged period, they will tell you that you will have a back pain for a long time, because we are basically lying down on a plank, a wooden plank, and it's not more than this. It's long, but it's just about the size of your body. So that hardness, you only have one blanket. That hardness, I did have severe pains. It took months, years before, that pain finally disappeared. When I went to the UK, I had further medical treatment.
How about your ability to sleep?
Yes, initially I had some very difficult to sleep, even at night, even if the doors, and then I had a phobia for keys, because, if I, in the prison, all these prison officers, they all had this bunch, this key bunch.
If you were to diagnose the condition you were in after you were released from prison, how would you call, or what would you call your condition?
Well, it was much better, because now I'm living in my family home, staying at my father's house. Now I don't have anywhere to live. So it was, in terms of perspective, comparing it to the prison, obviously there is market improvement. I'm back home. And also, I had another problem, because when I was arrested, all my belongings, somewhere with my in-laws, somewhere with my relatives,
In page 63 of your statement, paragraph 200, you had this to say. I will read it out.
Okay, good.
and then I'll ask you follow-on questions. And here you said as follows: I left mile 2, but mile 2 hadn't still left me. An airy paranoia haunted every dark room or place. I diagnosed myself with post-detention stress disorder. The raw experience of the place lurked in my wake like a hideous shadow I wouldn't cast away or shake off. Does that capture how you felt after leaving prison?
Yes, and then you didn't read the rest. You know, yes, I didn't just turn coward. I was sure of that. I said that. Yes.
I was going to come to that.
Ah, okay, sorry, I did promise.
Mr. Chongan,
Yeah.
but this is something that was real, isn't it?
Very real indeed.
You went on to say that I just didn't turn coward. I was sure of that. I guess that's the way the human mind would work after such an ordeal. Should I seek professional help? But where in the country? I wondered. Does that capture how you felt at the time?
Very well.
Would you say that such would be the situation of many people who have had or experienced prolonged detention at mile 2?
Yes, and I was one of the lucky people. At least I live in a fairly decent house. Because you will have post-traumatic disorder. It will affect you. It will take time to shake it up. In my early days in the UK, I used to go to the doctor and he tells me there's nothing wrong with you, you are just depressed.
What happened to your case after your release? You told the court you continued to report to the court. What happened to the case?
Yes, the case continued to go, and it was still with the magistrate Yukasi Dabo. So we went, and we were released in 3rd of February. There were a couple of the same thing. We go and they adjourn. We go and then adjourn until we go to 24th April, 1997. When I went with my dad on that day to the court, and then they told me that the government has filed in a nolle prosequi, and I told them, please give my dad his documents. But this was obviously a foregone conclusion, because by that time, Jammeh has appointed Pres Jagne as a commissioner of Western Division, or governor they call it now. So, I mean, there is no way they could prosecute me anymore. So.
And this was a time also when the new constitution was already in force, right?
Yes, exactly.
And what did you do after the prosecution was terminated?
Well, once it was terminated, if you recall, I did mention that I had a meeting, family meeting with my wife and my dad about my decision to go to exile. So once the court was finished, I think it was finished on a Monday or so, by the Wednesday I went to Senegal and gone to exile.
Mr. Chongan, here you are. You believe you were unfairly charged with crimes. You believe you were unlawfully detained. But now all these things are behind you. You have been, well, the charges have been withdrawn, or a nolle has been entered. You are no longer in detention. Why did you think you needed to go on exile?
If you read, the paragraphs you read before had succinctly captured it. I had no future in this country. My career has been destroyed. and I would never serve under a Yaya Jammeh government, under no whatever circumstances. And I was very lucky. I had a dad who had a lot of experience, who was a soldier. I mean, he sat me down one day with my wife and everybody, and he told me, my friend, you have to know that you are nobody. You are not a colonel anymore. No, you are nobody. That has to sink in with you. But one thing you are lucky is you are a young man. You can go and rebuild your life. So I had to go and further education, to retrain, to have another skill.
Did you feel safe in this country?
No, I didn't feel safe because I can vividly remember my dad telling me, you are very stubborn. If you stay here, even if they don't arrest you, they can do to you like what they did to Koro Sise. So he told me, you just, even those days, my dad would insist, you cannot go out. I have to be escorted by my wife everywhere I go. Because also, I was always speaking my mind.
You mentioned that your dad said you could be dealt with like Korosise. Can you expatiate on that a little bit? What happened to Korosise?
Well, I was in prison, but it's an open secret that Korosise died under very mysterious circumstances.
And what kind of message do those circumstances convey to you?
Fear. You either have to toe the line, or you can't fit in this country. You have to go. And I always say, I had the privilege or the opportunity of knowing Jammeh very well, so I knew that I cannot be in this country.
Who was Usman? Who was Mr. Korosise?
Well, Korosise was a finance minister in the junta.
And he died in mysterious circumstances, you say, correct?
Yes, that's an open secret. Everybody knows, I've heard about it.
You were interdicted from the services of the police, and you said you had a letter to that effect. Have you found the letter?
Yes, I have got the letter here.
Would you produce it to the commission? Were you eventually reinstated in the service? The answer is an obvious no, but I want you to give you the opportunity to say what happened at the end of the day, since you were merely interdicted as at the time you were released.
No, I was not reinstated. I lost the letter, but afterwards they also sent me another letter that I was dismissed with immediate effect, just a one line.
Thank you very much. For the period of your interdiction, were you receiving the half salary that you were entitled to?
No, it went 1 or 2 months and they cut it off.
Did they give you a reason for cutting it off?
There was no reason, as far as I'm aware.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chongan, for answering my questions. I now want to give you an opportunity to say what you think to the commissioners. Here you are, you had suffered what you call violations of your rights as a Gambian. Before I come to asking you the last few questions that I have, I would want to give you the opportunity to say something to the nation, to the commissioners. What can we learn from what has happened to you and to people like you? You have the forum, the opportunity as a victim to speak to the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Thank you, Commissioners. And thank you, the staff of the TRRC, for allowing me to explain the human rights abuses and victimization I suffered under the former regime. I am happy to wear the badge of honor to have been tortured, abused, victimized for defending the constitution of my motherland, the Gambia. I remain ready to put my life on the line for my homeland and let justice guide our actions. I hope by this narration, the government and the Gambian people will learn some lessons that can help us to avoid committing the same mistakes from the past. I go through my ordeal not to solicit pity from my fellow citizens, but to show Gambians the callous nature of the Yahya Jammeh regime and how sticking to the truth and one's principle will eventually pay off. One thing I am respectfully submitting to the Commission, I request the government to retire me honorably. I have no interest in putting off uniform anymore, but I am requesting that I should be retired honorably and paid my dues, because most of my colleagues who abdicated their responsibility and followed illegality, they are being paid their dues, rightfully, their gratuities and their pension. That is my sweat. I work for it. I would not compromise on that. Now, I hope this narration will help the government to see the mistakes committed in the Fourth Republic that led us to what is apparent to everybody. We have to be honest and have an honest discussion to know what type of citizens do we have, what type of Gambian do we want to have. I will not mince my words. We should fight tribalism, nepotism, corruption, and mediocrity. You fight tribalism with excellence, with equality of opportunity, and a transparent way of recruitment and promotion within the armed and security forces of the Gambia. We should hold people accountable and not encourage impunity in our society. We cannot continue to reward people who abdicated their responsibilities, condone and join illegality. What message are we sending to our children, to the young officers, men and women of our armed and security forces? If we do not address institutional reforms, we need to reform our institutions to make them Republican. The civil service, particularly the armed and security forces, they have to be Republican, free from political interference. They should be loyal to our country. We have to do that. Our Senegalese neighbors who are our cousins, you see they have a professional army. They never had a coup d'etat. Why? Because they have a professional and a strong army. Armies and police, there are rules and regulations. You don't just wake up, you promote somebody from sergeant to captain, and tomorrow you say you make him a colonel or a general. That doesn't happen. It only happens in a banana republic. So I think we need to reform our institutions, and there should be transparency. There should be proper exams so that people are recruited based on merit and they are promoted. In the military and the armed forces where I come from, carrying a rank is one thing. You have to earn it. If you become a colonel and the sergeant or the lieutenant has more experience, more educated than you, it wouldn't work. And I'm a Gambian patriot. I love my country. But I'm proud. I want us. We have Gambians who are able to help. We need to heal and come together as a nation. I am not angry about what happened. Indeed, I am proud I took the stand I took. And my mother is Mbake, is from the Mbake family. Saint Tuba is my great-grandfather. When he came back from exile after 7 years or so, he forgave everybody. I have forgiven everybody who has wronged me. I don't have any rancor or anything. I have moved on. I have educated myself. I have a job, and I'm moving on with my life. But I think it was important to explain what happened so that tomorrow we don't ask, the TRRC has said never again, so that it should never, ever happen. But that will only happen if we are truthful to ourselves. We cannot continue to promote hypocrisy. Even our religions don't allow it.
On that note, Mr. Chongan, I say thank you and I have no further questions for you. And if the commissioners would ask questions, I give them that opportunity. And thereafter, we would put in as, we would add onto the information that is available to the commission, the documents that are in your possession. We would put them in as exhibits, bearing in mind that still this is not a trial. We're just calling them exhibits because perhaps that would just capture their essence, but they are not exhibits as you would have them in court. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Council, for an excellent exchange with our very first witness in the public hearings here. Mr. Chongan, you are wonderful. You did very well. You responded to our call pursuant to the Act of Parliament or the National Assembly, which provides that we provide victims, I'm quoting from Section 13, little Roman C, provide them victims an opportunity to relate their own accounts of violations and abuses some have suffered. You did that very well with honor and dignity. And thank you also for your service to the country and also your father's service to the country. We really appreciate it very much. Do the commissioners have anything to say? And then we can do that. Yes, Mustafa.
Commissioner Mustafa, I have two questions. The first is, you mentioned that some of your co-prisoners were appointed. I just want to know, do you think that was the beginning of the divide and rule tactic that we saw during the regime? The second is, you also spoke about you're going to exile. Did you face any risk in going to exile?
Yes, I mean, I had a security threat. That's why I went to exile. My father passed away. My mother passed away. I couldn't come. You know, so I don't know what else to say. You know, it's a closure. That's it. And I'm just happy to be alive. That's good.
Thank you. Kinte.
Yeah.
Commissioner Kinte.
Commissioner Kinte. Mr. Chongan, in outlining your recommendations, you made very tangible recommendations. It is indeed deep-rooted on patriotism, dishonesty, and so on. These are deep-rooted, incompetency, and so on. And that's one reason why I'm sure I will strengthen these recommendations for rigorous conscientization. Of course, it is rather a bit late for the elderly. It is already part of them and they will find it difficult to part with it. So I'm sure we will be cognitive of this And then we will rigorously go out and target the youth and the children. Because what is happening is, we ourselves promote corruption. Why and how? People, for example, I'll give a classic example. Someone whose salary is not $5,000. We know the living standard of a Gambian who has a wife and 2 children. 5,000 is barely enough, or may not even be enough. How can that person, from where in the blues, build a compound and has not taken any loan? And no one is questioning this, not even the parents. How can that person sponsor a father or a mother to a pilgrimage, which is 5 years or 10 years of his salary? How can that person drive a luxurious car in the streets and afford to fuel it and so on? But these are the people we will cherish. When they arrive at occasions, we will all get up and hail them. It's unfortunate. This is emotional. So yes, we will have to, if we have to go on for a never again, yes, we will brush on the elderly and so on, but just briefly and just for formality. We should focus in our children, our youths. The laxity, the indifference and laziness in our children, in our youth, we have to confront it with boldness. Of course, we know they have other limitations like where are the funds and so on. But we will try to reach a compromise where they will also have to adapt to coping strategies. Yes, the nation doesn't have the fund, but we have to change. How do we manage that? We work on our curricula so that our children are not leaving school to be roaming about looking for white-collar jobs. We should embed in the curricula where children will grow with skills and they become employers rather than seeking for employment at all times. It's a big thing. But then the Never Again campaign will have to be diverse, rigorous, and intensive. Thank you very much for your very good deliberations and recommendations.
You can just turn that. Thank you very much, Commissioner Kinte. Imam Diallo, you have the floor, please.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chongan, I happen to know your father when I was a small boy in Basse. The bravery you have shown and standing steadfast on your beliefs are a lesson for every Gambian. You have raised issues that will lead a nation to freedom. Your deliberation today should be taken as the example that should exist for this country. These are the lessons our children must have. Now, you raised a very important issue. We often hear people talking about the 3 arms of government. You know these are connected with hypocrisy and lies. Your deliberation has shown all these things. What would you recommend to the CRC for a possible arm of government that will help to take care of this situation? For me, it has been working in my mind for the last few years as a British constitutional student. But I think something has got to be done. We now have people with the ideas. We cannot afford to take people, half-baked people, to lead us and to guide us when we have intelligent people like you in our midst. Mr. Chairman, I'm personally thanking you for your deliberation, and I hope it will help to guide the Gambian people to a better life. Thank you, Mr. Chongan.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Jallo, for that powerful statement, a powerful reaction. We do share your views very much, and you spoke on behalf of all of us. Thank you very much for that. Any other remarks? If not, Council, can you take us through tomorrow's program, and unless you have something else to say before that, before we close. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Perhaps before we relieve the witness, I would ask for the indulgence of the Commission to put into the record the documents that he has in his possession. I would wish to start with the manuscript that was the basis of his book and also the basis of his evidence. Can we please have the manuscript, please? And with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that it be marked Exhibit 0001. On this occasion, Mr. Chairman, we wouldn't be attaching the initials of the name of the witness to the exhibits because we envisage that there will be too many witnesses. That approach may cause confusion. So we just take a sequential approach. We only ascribe numbers to the exhibits, so we call it Exhibit 0001. Mr. Chongan, are you satisfied with what you're giving us now as containing the manuscripts? You can take your envelope if you want, and we would make copies, and then at a later stage the Commission would hand over the originals to you because these are very precious documents. All right. So can you pass them to the usher to bring to us? Yes. Okay. Bindalko. So, Mr. Chairman, at the right stage, we would ask for an order that these documents be admitted into the record. The first one I went through as Exhibit 0001. May I ask that your book also be handed over as Exhibit 002. 0002. Kindly pass over the book, please. We would also take the signed statement of Mr. Chongan as Exhibit 0003. Mr. Chongan was using his own copy of the statement, which he had marked for ease of reference. So he would hand over the signed copy to us as Exhibit 0003. Mr. Chongan had also used the detention order, which was made under the authority of Decree 3. The detention order listed the names of all those who were detained by the deputy chairman. That should come in as Exhibit 0004. And the next exhibits would be the newspapers that reported Mr. Chongan's trial. There would be Exhibits 0005. So the first one would be newspaper, Observer newspaper, dated, perhaps no, I should get them in chronology. Just give me a second. I would, just a moment, admitted. I would start with Daily Observer newspaper dated Thursday, 5th December 1996, with the headline, "The Unfinished Business of the Detainees." That should be 5A, Exhibit 0005A. And the Observer, the Point newspaper rather, dated November 4th, 1996. The detainees captioned, "The detainees will be released if they comply." Jame, and that would be 0005B. And Daily Observer, dated 23rd May 1996, captioned, "Trial of former IGP and others, as one of the accused is admitted in hospital." That would be 5C. Daily Observer, dated 6 March 1996, captioned, "Grant bail to Pasala Jany and others. Defense lawyers urge Magistrate Onya." That would be 5D. Daily Observer, dated April 17, 1996, captioned, "Supreme Court officials defend dismissal of Bori Ture. Alleges Ture ruling against the state lacks the legality of law." That would be 005E. The Point newspaper, dated April 15, 1996, captioned, "Former IGP and others acquitted, as magistrates struck out without cost charges against them." That should be 0005F. Point newspaper, dated Monday, April 1996. Mr. Chongan, prison was very hard. Mile 2 was very hard, according to your description of things. How did it feel the first few months you were out of prison and you were now able to enjoy some of the basic necessities of life, which appeared as big luxuries at Mile 2 prison, to those at Mile 2 prison? How did it feel the first few months that you were out?
Yeah, thank you. Obvious. I was very elated and happy to gain my freedom. But also, one has to understand that my court case was still lingering. So I had to continue to report for trial. But that aside, and also I was gathering my thoughts to prepare myself because I had already decided when I was in the prison that as soon as I'm out, I'm going to exile. I'm not going to be in any part of this OSAPE. You remember during that time, if you come out, you need to get a letter. You write it to Jame, asking him forgiveness, etc. And he will receive you, and then give you some money, and then offer you some position, and you move on.
Was that the norm, as you described it? Was that a norm?
Well, yeah, that was a norm. People would write him a letter to thank him for releasing them, and then he will grant you an audience, and then in his magnanimity, he will give you a position or give you some money. That has been the modus operandi for the majority of people.
Can you give us a few examples, if you can?
You will see that most of the people I was detained with were reinstated. They went back to the army, had their careers, all of them, from Samsar, all of them were reinstated. Oops. Can I continue?
Please continue.
Yeah. Lots of them were reinstated. Even my, can I continue?
Please continue.
Yeah. Even my own boss, Mr. Jan, he was reinstated and made a commissioner. He went to Jame, prayed at his mosque, and then after he was made a commissioner of Western Division. So quite a number of people, when they came out, reconciled and had their positions.
Did you believe or did you find reason to reconcile with Jame?
No, because I was certainly not going to subject myself to writing a letter. I would not do that. And also, I just knew that, I mean, we were at the apex of the military. I mean, I don't fit anymore. So I decided, but I had a discussion with my father and my wife, and we accept that resolutely. I'm not going to take any part in this. But what we agreed that I should not leave the Gambia until this case is finished, so that I don't want to go and they said that he absconded, he was guilty, etc.
In your statement, page 63, the second part, the paragraph after paragraph 202, you had something interesting to say. Could you read it out? If you cannot, if Mr. Chongan, if you have difficulty seeing in view of the poor lighting, perhaps I could just read it out and you would confirm whether that is okay, accurately captures what you wanted to say or not.
Yeah, that would help because.
Thank you. I wasn't, quote, I wasn't as angry and sad that beneath the veneer of fanfare and sloganeering pronouncements, the country was to all intents and purposes under one-man rule. The election to establish democracy was a mere facade. When it came to the state, the rule of law and justice were afterthoughts. Everything revolved around loyalty to the imperial president, and propaganda had replaced truth. The national news from the state-owned media was an endless series of promotional productions to sell a fairy tale image of the man to the nation. I knew the man since he was a private soldier. I commanded him for years. I knew his strengths and weaknesses as a person and a soldier. In the end, he was just a man like all of us in the force. But I just couldn't find it in me to suspend my disbelief at the masquerade put up to beguile the nation into perceiving Yahya Jammeh as some kind of superhuman being. No matter how long the show went on, it wouldn't make a convert out of me, unquote. Does that capture what you felt at the time?
Correct, indeed.
You said it was a modus operandi for people to write letters and get reinstated. You indicated that there were some people made attempts at getting you to reconcile with Jammeh. Could you name those individuals, or at least some of those individuals who advised you to do so?
Yeah, Samsudin Sar and the late Captain Bajinka and even Babukar Jata, who was the commander of the army.
You were released from prison. What happened to your career as a senior officer at the police?
if you could remember, they suspended me they suspended me initially on half pay, and they stopped it, and I was dismissed, and I've never been paid any gratuity or anything.
How were you informed of your interdiction from the service?
I got a letter. It was written to me that based on these flimsy criminal charges that I have been suspended, quoting the service rules at the time.
Do you have a copy of that letter with you?
Yes, I had the copy of the letter. Here, I have it. I have it here.
Would you be happy to produce it to the commission?
Okay. All right, let me just search it. I had it. It was in. It was in one of the envelopes I had here.
If you can find it now, you can provide it later to council, and council would make an application to submit it to the commission.
Yes, I certainly have it. I just don't know where it is now.
We would come back to that at some later stage.
Okay.
You mentioned somebody called Mr. Baba Job as one of those people who spoke to you and advised that you reconcile with Jammeh. Who was Baba Job at this time when you met him?
Baba Job, before the coup, he was detained at the military police. At the military police opposite my official residence. And I used to supply him food while he was detained there. And after the coup, he became very close to Yahya Jammeh. Everybody knew that. He was a very powerful man in the system. So I remember meeting him along Independence Drive. Is it Independence Drive in Banjul, the main road? And there was a petrol station opposite the church, opposite the Anglican church. So I was there in my wife's car trying to get petrol, and he met me there, and he told me, oh, Mr. Chongan, I really want you to reconcile with the president, etc. And I told him, no, I am not interested. And he wanted to give me some money for my petrol. I said, no, 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 thank you very much, even though I had only a few $100s on me.
So the meeting is suspended for 30 minutes, and see you tomorrow if the lights don't come back on.